Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. Oxford, the podcast for English learners who want to improve their skills in a fun and relaxed way. I'm JD.
And I'm Hazel. So lovely to have you with us again. And before we get into today's topic, JD, can I just say the comments from last week were something else?
They really were. We asked you to pick one area of pronunciation and practice it out loud for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes.
And so many of you actually did it. We had people writing in to say they stood in front of their bathroom mirror saying, this, that, over and over again.
Which is exactly the right thing to do, by the way. The bathroom mirror is a completely underrated pronunciation tool.
Ha! It really is. And one listener, this one made me smile so much, wrote, I tried the vowel pairs, ship and sheep. I said them to my cat.
Right.
She was not impressed, but I felt great. That is the spirit?
That is absolutely the spirit. Your cat does not need to be impressed. You just need to get your mouth moving. So well done to everyone who gave it a go.
Right. Now, today's episode. And this one we have been looking forward to for a while. JD, would you like to introduce it?
I would love to. Today we are talking about false friends. And no, not the kind of friend who smiles to your face and talks behind your back.
Although honestly, not a bad description.
Ha! Fair point. False friends are words that look or sound very similar in two different languages, but have completely different meanings. And they can cause some genuinely wonderful misunderstandings.
Now, here is the thing about false friends. They exist in every language. It does not matter where you are from. If your language and English share any common roots or history, there will be words that look like they should mean one thing, and then very much do not.
And because so many of our listeners come from different countries and different language backgrounds, we thought it would be fun today to look at examples from lots of different languages. So wherever you are listening from, we think you will recognize at least one of these.
And at the end of the episode, we have a challenge that involves your own language, so stay with us for that.
Let's get into it.
So let's start at the beginning. Why do false friends exist in the first place?
It is actually a really interesting question. A lot of it comes down to history. English has borrowed words from an enormous number of languages over the centuries: Latin, French, Spanish, Greek, and many more. So there are words in English that look very familiar to speakers of those languages.
And most of the time, that is a wonderful thing. It means that if you speak a Romance language, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, you already have a head start with a huge amount of English vocabulary.
But sometimes, over hundreds of years, words took different paths. The spelling stayed similar, the sound stayed similar, but the meaning drifted apart. And that is where the false friend is born.
Your brain sees the familiar shape of the word. It says, oh, I know this one. And it is wrong. Confidently wrong.
Which is, honestly, the most memorable kind of wrong. Because a mistake made with confidence is a mistake you never forget.
That is actually a beautiful way to look at it. Let's get to some examples.
Okay, let's start with one that affects speakers of several different languages. The word embarrassed.
Oh, this is such a good one. So in English, embarrassed means you feel ashamed or awkward about something. You go a little red in the face. I was so embarrassed when I forgot her name.
Now, in Spanish, the word embarazada looks almost identical, but it means pregnant, not embarrassed at all.
So a Spanish speaker who says I am embarazada, thinking they are saying they feel embarrassed, is actually announcing something quite different to an English ear.
And this is actually one of the most famous false friends in the world. Language teachers love this example.
Because it is so easy to imagine the mix-up happening in real life. You stumble over something, you feel awkward, and you reach for the familiar-looking word. And suddenly, everyone thinks you have some very exciting news.
Exactly. The correct English word, of course, is embarrassed. And if you are expecting a baby, pregnant.
Let's do another one. This one is for our French listeners. The word actually.
Ah, yes. In English, actually means in reality, or in fact. You use it to correct something or to add a surprising piece of information. I actually enjoy early mornings. Actually, that is not quite right.
In French, actuellement means currently or right now, not actually.
So a French speaker might say, I am actually living in Paris, meaning they are currently living in Paris. But an English listener hears actually and thinks, there is a contrast coming. Are they surprised to be living in Paris? Is there something unexpected about it?
It is subtle, but it can make sentences feel slightly strange. The English word for currently is simply currently or at the moment. I am currently living in Paris. Clear and simple.
And on the flip side, the French actuellement is the English currently, not actually.
Okay, let's look at one that comes up a lot for Italian speakers. The word eventually.
Yes. So in English, eventually means after a long time, or in the end. I eventually found my keys. She eventually became a doctor. There is a sense of time passing.
In Italian, eventualmente means possibly or if necessary. It is about possibility, not time.
So an Italian speaker might say, eventually, we could meet on Friday, meaning possibly if it works. But in English, that sentence sounds like they are suggesting a meeting at some distant point in the future. Maybe never.
Which could make scheduling quite difficult.
It really could. Possibly, or perhaps, are the right English words there. And eventually is when something finally happens after a wait.
Let's keep going. The next one is one that I find really interesting because it is a false friend that affects learners from many different backgrounds. The word sympathetic.
Oh, this one is so common. In English, sympathetic means you feel sorry for someone and you understand their pain. She was very sympathetic when I told her what had happened.
But in many European languages, German, Dutch, Swedish, and others, the equivalent word means nice or likable. Sympathisch in German, sympathique in French. They all mean pleasant, friendly, easy to like.
So a learner might say, my new colleague is very sympathetic, meaning they find her nice and easy to get along with. But in English, that sentence suggests the colleague is full of pity, as if something terrible has happened.
Why is your colleague pitying you? Are you okay?
Exactly. The correct word for that meaning in English is lovely, friendly, pleasant, or simply nice. And sympathetic is saved for moments of genuine compassion.
Okay, next one. Sensible. This one catches out a lot of learners.
In English, sensible means practical, reasonable, and level-headed. A sensible decision is a careful, well-thought-out one. A sensible person makes good choices.
But in Spanish, French, and Italian, the equivalent word, sensible, 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 means sensitive, emotionally aware, easy to hurt.
So when a learner describes their friend as very sensible in English, meaning she is emotionally sensitive, in English, they are actually saying she is very practical and rational, which might also be true, but is probably not what they meant.
Sensitive is the correct English word for that meaning, and sensible is the word for someone who makes calm, practical decisions.
One more for this section, and this is a beautiful one. The word pretend.
In English, to pretend means to act as if something is true when it is not. Children pretend. Actors pretend. He pretended not to hear me. But in French, prétendre means to claim or to assert. Il prétend être médecin. He claims to be a doctor. So the sentence, she pretends to be a doctor, in English and in French, sounds the same, but means something quite different. In English, she is playing a role, maybe in a game or a film. In French, she is making a claim that might or might not be true.
The English equivalent of the French prétendre is to claim. She claims to be a doctor. Much clearer.
Okay, I want to take a small detour here, because I think we should acknowledge something. False friends are not always catastrophic. Most of the time, they are just funny.
So true. And I have a story that I think perfectly captures this. A friend of mine was traveling in Portugal. She had been learning some Portuguese before the trip, and she was very proud of herself for trying to use it.
As she should be. Trying is always the right thing to do.
Exactly. So she goes into a shop, and she wants to say, "The shop is really nice." She knows the Portuguese word borracha. Sounds a little like a word she knows, so she tries to use it confidently.
And?
Borracha in Portuguese means rubber, or drunk.
Oh no.
She essentially told the shop assistant that their shop was very drunk.
Ha! And what did the shop assistant do?
She laughed, and then she helped my friend find the right word. And my friend still tells that story today as one of her favorite travel memories.
And that is exactly the point, isn't it? The misunderstanding happened. It was funny. And then the conversation continued. Nobody was harmed, and she learned something she will never forget.
Exactly. False friends are embarrassing in the moment and wonderful in hindsight. So please, do not let the fear of them stop you from trying.
Before we get to the recap, I want to give our listeners one practical tip for dealing with false friends going forward.
Please do.
When you come across a word in English that looks very similar to a word in your language, pause for just a second. Do not assume the meaning is the same. Look it up.
It takes 10 seconds, and it can save you from some very memorable misunderstandings.
And over time, you will build up your own personal list of false friends. Words that you know to double-check. This is actually a really valuable habit.
And here is something encouraging. The more you read and listen in English, the more you will naturally start to feel when something does not quite fit. Your instinct gets better. You start to notice when a word feels slightly off.
Trust that instinct, and when it fires, look it up.
Right. Recap time. We covered a lot of ground today.
False friends are words that look or sound similar in two languages, but have different meanings. They exist because languages share roots and history, but words drift apart over time.
Today's false friends.
Embarrassed in English means ashamed or awkward. Not pregnant, which is what embarazada means in Spanish.
Actually, in English means in reality or in fact. Not currently, which is what actuellement means in French.
Eventually in English means after a long time in the end. Not possibly, which is what eventualmente means in Italian.
Sympathetic in English means feeling compassion for someone. Not nice or likable, which is what similar words mean in German, French, and other languages.
Sensible in English means practical and reasonable. Not sensitive, which is what sensible or sensibile means in Spanish, French, and Italian.
And pretend in English means to act as if something is true, not to claim, which is what prétendre means in French.
6 false friends, drawn from several different languages, and hopefully at least one of them felt familiar to you.
Okay, challenge time. And this week, it is personal.
We want you to think about your own language. Just sit for a moment and think. Is there a word in English that looks or sounds like a word in my language? A word I have been assuming means the same thing?
It might be a word from today's episode. It might be something completely different. The point is to notice it, look it up, and find out for sure.
And then, please share it in the comments. Tell us what the word is, what you thought it meant, and what it actually means in English. We would genuinely love to build a community list of false friends from all over the world.
Because our listeners come from so many different countries and language backgrounds. Between all of you, there are hundreds of false friends waiting to be discovered.
And when you share yours, you might be saving another listener from a very confident mistake.
Which is honestly one of the kindest things you can do.
And on that note, a huge thank you, as always, to everyone who writes in. You come from so many different places, and every single comment reminds us why we love making this podcast.
If you have a topic you would love us to cover, a grammar question, a tricky situation, a type of vocabulary you need, drop it in the comments. Every suggestion gets read, and many of them become episodes.
This podcast is built with you, and we mean that genuinely. Right? Next week. JD, what are we talking about?
Next week, we are talking about English in the workplace. The kind of professional English you need for emails, meetings, and everyday office life. Because workplace English has its own vocabulary, its own tone, and its own unwritten rules.
And knowing those rules can make a real difference, whether you are writing to a colleague, joining a call in English for the first time, or just trying to sound confident in a professional setting. It is going to be a very practical episode, one with phrases you can start using immediately. Until then, keep listening, keep practicing, and please be kind to yourself on this journey. Making mistakes is not a sign that you are bad at English. It is a sign that you are doing it.
Especially with false friends. Confidently wrong is still one step closer to confidently right.
Beautifully put. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It means everything. Bye, everyone.
Happy speaking!